We believe that academies in a university also have to in line with the government agenda. Our ideal word is very simple. We want the development of research that conducted by this university and tertiary education can be more beneficial to the society in line with the strategy of the state. So all the research that they want to apply to the society will be better, will be more applicable, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how the characterization that happened in the state determine utility factors. In this case, it's happened through these indicators. It will identify what the goal of the country, will identify what exactly the strategy of the country, and also will try to eliminate the over budgeting that probably happened in a certain program that's still unnecessary and not giving the significant changes towards the development of the country itself, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that all of the characterization that exists in the state that determine utility factor is still not exist in the current status quo. Why? Because in current status quo there still exists wasting money, ladies and gentlemen. This the not good allocation towards the not strategic working program, for example. Why? Because some of the program that exists in a government is only follow the demands of the society. It's follow the demands of the popularity that exists in a global scale. For example, let's say that country A have A, so that is why the B also want to have A, which we think it's not good. Why? Because it's not exact. It's not doesn't mean that when A have A, B will have to have A, because they have a different background of problem. Doesn't necessarily mean these kinds of things will becomes the global problem. For example, it's something that feasible happen in the current status quo, because for example the developed country become too centrist to developed country, ladies and gentlemen. They see a working program, for example the development of technology that really develop in America, for example. So the developing country like Indonesia also want to pursue that kind of technology, which actually not become their basic problem. For example, they might have the problem in terms of education or also in terms of agricultural, for example. So that is why, in conclusions, why the following this bad popularity is something that is not good, because there will be too much demands that will exist that is not clear, that is subjective, ladies and gentlemen, which we see in the current status quo. The demands of that coming from the society is very fluctuative. It's something that can be interfered by any kinds of internal political conditions, and also all of the kinds of things will, in conclusion, is very hard to be compiled, ladies and gentlemen. You want to relate to the popularity. Second reason why this bad popularity is also not good in terms of the stakeholder of the researcher itself, because we believe that the researcher also not only want to conduct research, they also want to gaining the popularity that coming from the research itself, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we think it's really feasible that these researchers want to take in the opportunity that become popular in a developed country. They also want to conduct it in their country, which we think it is something that is bad. Why? Because probably it will wasting money, because your research that you want to conduct is something that is not become a primary things that you have to do in your country. For example, it might be beneficial, but maybe it will be in a secondary level, ladies and gentlemen, and society will buy it because the society see it as because the society see it as something that is popular in that country, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why in our ideal conditions, that kinds of thing will not be happen, because instead determined utility factors will be more efficient in allocation that can directly solving the strategic problem. In the self-determined utility factor itself will exist the better discussion in internal of the government. They will try to deliver rationally what they have to do and what not to do, ladies and gentlemen. For example, when this country is facing the problem in the long term, like in agricultural level, ladies and gentlemen, they facing the fail in harvesting the rice, for example, fail in harvesting the corns, for example. So that is why the government will try to conduct the research how to having the better researchers in terms of agricultures, and also on how, for example, when they need this kinds of technology, they will try to research how to develop this technology, which we think that can be more strategic, ladies and gentlemen. Two stakeholders that also I want to characterize in these kinds of things to make it more feasible. First is the government, and second of the university. Why we believe that it is something that should always be relied for this country itself. for the country itself, ladies and gentlemen, because we believe that the government is the one who understands. Because they have the data of this country, they understand the likelihood of the country itself. They know the problem comprehensively from the root of the and how it happened during this last years, for example, and how to solve it in the future, ladies and gentlemen. And also the government also have the responsibility also to control the university, since the university itself still under the control of the government itself, ladies and gentlemen. Then why we should also concern to the university to follow these kinds of things? Because we see that the activity that conducted in the university, they are the one who have the role to actively as the source of the references of the knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. They are the center of the any kinds of the basic consideration that they want to conduct the development. The reason why the government choose to build a bridge in a particular place, because the university, the researchers has the incentivizes that there is the demand that exists in that they want to a better mobilization in that area, for example, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we think that our proposal will solving and giving the better efficiency towards to these kinds of things. Let's see in the worst case scenario that probably will bring by the government. They will try because the trend, for example, the science major exists, the science major will trend. It will limiting the allocation for the researchers in a particular majors like social major, for example. But we think that it is something that's still okay because government want to focus to this. It is something that's still strategic because at very least they can having a better human researchers that understand about the technology and science and not really need this kinds of socials, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take even if for example they will not completely directly abolish that kind of major, ladies and gentlemen, because we believe that there's still a tendency to having a discussion. For example, the worst case scenario, they only will limiting the quota for the particular major. We think that it is something that's still okay because we don't think that we need too much human resource that coming from a particular major if it's not solving the problem of a country, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we think it is something that okay. It is also something that important to begin with because we believe that all of that human resource that coming from the major is really need to develop. It's really need in a developing country, ladies and gentlemen, which still hard to have a basic consideration on how they want to build their nation. For example, it's really also important, for example, in a newly independent state to determine their long-term strategy for their to survive, to compete with another country, ladies and gentlemen. In conclusions, these kinds of state-determined utility factors can bring a better stability to the country, that less outcomes and optimal result from the research itself. The motion stands. Thank you.
Judges, the government side of the House failed to characterize what is exactly the essence of these kinds of research to begin with, right? We say that what happened in the status quo, the current status quo research focus on how first they try to give contribution for the society that leads to create insight by the informations of those kinds of research at the end of the day. But secondly, it's a form of reference to other research on how you could open the discussion among the society at the end of the day. But we said that the government failed to give a time that how in the side of the House those kinds of open discussion would be happen, and also how the progress of the government currently face right now would be even get the progress at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So we have to analyze that even the current status quo, the government actually rational, that they actually understand what kind of needs of the society. Yes, we can see that what the government try to explain on this debate. But we also need to understand that exactly government also have their capacity to select what kinds of research to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. But we see that what happened right now, the research is not eventually should be based on utility factors, because we see that all the demands of society couldn't be achieved only just by using the policy of the government. Exactly, we need these kinds of research in order for you to get more information about what is actually the dynamics that happen inside of these kinds of society in status quo, ladies and gentlemen. And also, we say that the problem that coming by the government side of the house is not that really relevant into this debate, ladies and gentlemen, because if you want to talk about the technology, that exactly in status quo, we need a variety of these kinds of research in order to make people aware that all the things that in this world, you have to be more open-minded to all the development of the research at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So several response to the government side of the house. First thing, they're trying to explain about how in different problem in every state should be considered to give a different approach in terms of give a process of research, such as how in developing state that you cannot look for what happened in developed state. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly the problem in government side, right? Because exactly we need this kinds of variety of research. We cannot make the standardization, the research that you must help in your state should suitable with the conditions of your state, ladies and gentlemen, because you have to understand the characterization of these kinds of research is a very universal, ladies and gentlemen. All the people could engage in the process of research because it is something that could be could create innovative at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because we say that this research most likely could be innovative and open ideas to every individual, ladies and gentlemen, especially when you are in the developing state, means that you have to open discussion by open the chance for every individual, especially for students, to create variety of research, ladies and gentlemen. And also, they say that how these kinds of allocation is not strategic to begin with. I will explain to you in my argument why these kinds of allocation is really important and effective in our side, especially if we are talk about the research itself, ladies and gentlemen. And second argument, they're trying to explain about how this is not it's not only about popularity, and this is how you have to focus about the utility of these kinds of research. Ladies and gentlemen, government failed to understand what is exactly the essence of research to begin with. We are not really focused to get the popularity here, but we are trying to make people aware that there is something that we are not trying to engage with. That is why these kinds of research appear to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. Example, if we talk about the research about how the behavior or how these kinds of LGBT movement try to adapt with their own circumstances, these kinds of research could be the information for the government on how to give approach to these kinds of LGBT movement at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. That is why these kinds of research is really necessary for every layers of individual at the end of the day. So our stance as opposition, we don't want to limit the process of research because we think that the source of information by the research is something that's really important for every individual, ladies and gentlemen. We want these kinds of research to be inclusive towards all layers of people, and why those kinds of things would create a better accountability for the government at the end of the day. So 2 points in my argument. First is that why it's important to allocate our funds to every kinds of research and any idea to improve the quality of research itself. But secondly, why by using utility factors would regress the intensity of research and also regress the accountability of the government in their side of the house. First is that why it's important, right? We have to discuss in our world the ideal principle of research must contain, first, we want that research open to many things, open in any ideas and open in progress of gaining more information, ladies and gentlemen. But also the research that can shows how it's something could be understandable for every individual, state, and even the government body itself, ladies and gentlemen. We talk about the public university, right? Which exactly the government put trust to these kinds of students to embrace the process of research, ladies and gentlemen. That is exactly the reason why PKM exists, because government want to see how your idea could embrace all the phenomenon that happen in current status quo, ladies and gentlemen. But most important thing that we have to discuss why the research actually is really important, ladies and gentlemen. We say that these kinds of research, it's really important in order to become the platform to know something new, and most important things the most important things that this research lead to incentivize people to be more progressive in the variety of the problems itself, ladies and gentlemen. We have to analyze why the research exists because people think that there is gap between the reality and expectation. So this is funding actually could incentivize people to explore more phenomenon in status quo. That is why there is a suggestion for every researcher that in the research, for example, in order for you to improve the quality of your research, ladies and gentlemen, and also instead of give the information about what is the phenomenon that happened in the status quo, also predict what would happen in the future, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say that it's really important to the government to incentivize these kinds of things at the very first beginning. Because why? It leads to improve the quality of research, because this funding as a form of reinforcement to all researchers to explore more unique things and all phenomena that important to be explored at the very first beginning, ladies and gentlemen. So what we want as the opposition side, we want that people to be more innovative by using the unique kinds of research, but also we want to support all kinds of idea, even though that you are talk about social behavior, politics, technology, and economy, that which we think is even very, very beneficial at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Second argument, why by using utility factors would regress the intensity of research and regress the accountability of the government. We have to understand that these utility factors most likely set by the government standard. This standard most likely come by the preference of the government body itself, but secondly, the database that also coming by the government body. But ladies and gentlemen, we do not like that. In the government side, most likely the process of creating policy or setting the standard most likely biased to their own agenda, ladies and gentlemen. It's only focusing on how it could be beneficial for government policy or not. Example, when we are talking about the government that dominate patriarchal values, would most likely hire the workers from men rather than women, ladies and gentlemen. But in our world, we want that all researchers is not going to be biased. We want the research also focused to search something that is not popular to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. That is exactly the essence of research that we want to achieve in our side. Proud to oppose.
Ladies and gentlemen, first, understand that at the very first place, the one who fund those particular university is the state. So in the end of the day, it is really justifiable for the state to control what exactly those particular universities should do. As Kak Farid also already told you guys that it is really justifiable for state to control those particular things, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. And also, the one who have the intention, the one who will be blamed in the end of the day, the one who responsible to solve those several problems that exist in the current status quo is our state, let's say our government. They are the one who is responsible for all those things. So in the end of the day, it's really justifiable for state to do so, ladies and gentlemen. See that there is never happened that society blame, for example, scientists for not finding the cure of cancer, but society blame the country for not allocating their money, for example, to find the cure of those particular cancer, saying country too busy to improve their infrastructure, so far and so on. This already proved to you guys that exactly society already biased, society already sees that the one who is responsible for all those things is our state, ladies and gentlemen. So in the end of the day, it is really justifiable for state to do so. And moving on to my rebuttal, first rebuttal to the opposite side of the house. So the opposite side of the house was arguing that the open discussion will not happen in our side. We say no, those particular open discussion will happen because there will be a discussion among for example the House of Representatives or DPR. We say that those particular discussion will be more something that is followable. Why we say so? Because those particular people in DPR, for example, are those particular people that we choose. When we choose them, meaning that we already agree what is the things that they will do in the future. When we already agree what is the things that they will do in the future, that is exactly why it is justifiable for DPR to say so, to say their voice in making those particular decisions. So it won't happen that it won't happen that they say that a discussion will not happen. State will just do something that they want, that only beneficial for them, so on and so forth. And also the opposition side of the House was arguing that government will not resulting variety of research result. First, I will clarify that Farid never really mentioned that there will be no variation on those particular research. We say that when those particular research, when all of those particular research is impactful, is beneficial for our country, we will fund all of those stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, because we see that is because we see that that's important. But when we see that there is one research, for example, that could cater all of those research, why we don't just fund one those research if those research already could cater all of those research? And however, it will be more clear because we will only choose something that we see that it is beneficial. And also the opposite side of the House was arguing that they will make research to raise awareness, not to gain attention. But we say no, their intention to do so is to gain attention from the society. Their intention to do those particular research, for example, because they want some appreciation from the society. They do that because they want appreciation. When those particular things happen, we see that it is bad because they only do something that they see that it will make them famous, for example, not something that is really beneficial, not something that exactly our country really need. And also this kind of particular motion exactly happen in those particular developing country. Why? Because in developing country, and it is really important for developing country to allocate their money better, because we are still in a stage of developing, ladies and gentlemen. And also they say that there will no much demand that will be catered in our side. We say no because government will aware of this demand if those particular demand is important. If we see that if there is much demand coming from the society, so on and so forth, we will see that that is important. Hence why we will following those particular demand coming from our society. Okay. One argument that I will explain in this debate. Okay. So what will be the future impact? Okay, Farid already make it clear that state understand what we exactly really need. Okay, this will. There will be a condition when this will erase those particular major that isn't tangible. For example, like literature, social, and so on and so forth. We say that it is really okay to erase those particular major when we see that isn't important. Because however, in the end of the day, those alumni, if we could see in the current status quo, those alumni that coming from social, that coming from literatures, in the end of the day will only work in bank. For example, they will not work in those particular job field that is in line with their major. In the end of the day, those particular major just wasting the money of our country. And we see that this is something bad, because why if we could allocate our money for something better, we should waste our money for something that is not beneficial in the end of the day. And it will be more efficient if the university directly give their money to those particular major that is really beneficial. For example, like technique, MIPA, so on and so forth. Those particular major is exactly those major that our country need to improve our country, exactly in developing country, because we need to improve, for example, our infrastructure, so on and so forth. Okay, so the opposition might say that this major exactly the only major that could cater what those students want. But we say when this condition happen, those particular major will not be erased, and those particular major will not be erased anyway. When there is still someone who that wanted to go into those particular major, they will not be erased anyway. But we, as the government, will still reduce the quota of those particular major. So our allocation of funding will be more efficient in the end of the day, compared when we just let those major like in the current status quo. It will just throwing our money for something that we see that it is not important, ladies and gentlemen. It is not important to be prioritized. And also, understand that the state won't give you, for example, if a scientist, for example, already make a research about something, but in the end of the day, government didn't see that those particular research that they make is not something that is important. However, those particular result of research will not used anyway, because and in the end of the day, those particular research will not be used, because state see that those particular research is not important. However, it is better in our side, because when we already fund those particular research, meaning that those particular research, we see that it is important, we will use it anyway. Hence why we are proud to propose.
First clarification: it doesn't mean that if the proposal of the opposition is going to run, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are that the possibility of the research done to the purposes of majority is not going to be condoned. It is not going to be done in a society where, because first in status quo we also claim that the amount of budget that is allocated to the research to the specific cases or the minority cases is already minimum. I will extend this case further in my argument by saying why it is more harm the progressivity on the research in solving the minority cases in status quo, and why it is not explained well by the government side of the house. Second clarification is that Neny already told to you why is the inherently ideal parameter of you doing research. Thus, I will explain to you why if the government trying to intervene the particular research inside of the public university, why it will direct it. That shows to you that the government is not being accountable in the sense of you are not being given freedom to access the informations that you are supposed to be get if you are being an academician. That's the thing that I will prove to you in the argument. Several engagement. First engagement, they're trying to discuss this in this particular room, that the discussions will most likely will be happen if our proposal is not going to be run. Mostly they're trying to be champion those particular issues. First engagement, we say it is untrue, because most likely the discussion will be centered to the majority that exists in our status quo, because they are not being exposed with the research that is going to be shown. If the researchers claim that there is some data showing that this is a problem in the minorities case, but even if the discussion is happening, thus the discussion that is already happening is not holistically possible. Why? Because the discussion is mostly held by the media, for example, or by the media or the government that already have an ulterior motives. Ladies and gentlemen, media wants to gain profit, governments wants to make sure that the discussion is controlled by make sure that the discussion is centered to the government's interest. I will explain to you also later. They also say their second biggest important argument is the inherent reason why people goes to doing research because they want to get appreciation. No. We say that it is not their true cause. The cause of they are not company means they don't want to just getting an appreciation. They inherently doing research because they want to solve issues. They see problem using their particular background and they want to directly solve their issues. That is why you are become academician, because you have the authority to access this problem. You use the tools that you learn in university and you can solve those problems. But even if they claim that they want, even if that the inherent reason is about the appreciation, we say it is okay, no harm because of that. Every research needs an appreciation, because the reason why you can solve cancer, because it is in the form of the research, and you should appreciate the one who find the medicine, ladies and gentlemen. Thus, we don't see any extended harm that claimed by the government side of the house. Two arguments. First, I will prove three arguments. First, I will prove to you why cutting the fund means limiting people's freedom, especially when it comes to university. Second of all, why their proposal directly damage the minority. Third of all, what it will creating discriminatory budget allocation from the government. First, why cutting the fund means limiting people's freedom. Ideally, government should facilitate the fundamental needs of specific occupation and conditions toward all citizens. In workplace, the government should facilitate worker insurance to make sure that you can work. That is why there's BPJS. If you are an academician, government should give you the platform to exercise their needs on research if you are being academician. What I'm trying to say, why also it should be in the form of freedom in terms of research, why those particular individual is able to give the freedom to do research whatever they want. Because this is the justification, because they are in a state where they are being critical. Reason behind that, because they are already finished secondary education, high school education, and they are currently pursuing tertiary education. What I'm trying to say means they are in a state that they are being critical, especially when their major force them to detect the societal problems. If I am in a university and I am in Makassar, I say that these particular problems is happening in Makassar, demonstration, riots, and etc. And I, as the social students, I will directly see it and I will undergo research based on it. Maybe it is not seen utility by the government, but it is important because I see that this is somehow impacted my society. That is how it is important. What is the problem if you're cutting the fund? First, means the government fail principally to facilitate the needs of their society, because the needs of the society, they track the problems, they solve it. That is the inherent job of you as an academician, because you can use those particular issues as your tools to solve it. But second, if the government overpower them, means it shut down people's freedom to the extent of not exercise something that is not does not give a tangible harm. It is just a form of research, it is just a form of data. Thus, the government needs bigger explanation on why you can limit the process of the collection of data. That what the opposition side of the house trying to champion. This I already proved to you why it is inherently also justified to just give them fund, and why is it okay to do research. Second of all, why the proposal is directly damage the minority. We're talking about protection towards the further actor of minority. Here's what's happening in status quo. Like I've been told you that there's already minimum attention towards minority problems. Two reasons. Because they also admit that there are minimum amount of budget allocations. The reason behind it, because they are consider it, the parliament or the government consider it, is less important. Meanwhile, principally or ideally, they should care. Intuitively, cutting the fund means diminish all the research towards minority problems. There is a harm that will happen. First harm, that the problems that encounters minority wouldn't be solved. That the reason why government gives exclusive parking lot to women and disabilities, because there are research showing that this is important for them to give them so, because the numbers of rape cases towards happen towards women in the parking lot is high. That is why government sees it important. But the second, it would lose the support from the citizens or movement that they want to pressurize government. Here's the explanation. The reason why women in Saudi Arabia are able to write, because the society or the movement are known by their country, are known that their country is that repressive to women. They are condemned to demonstration, they are speaking up, got spotlight by the media, and etc. Thus, the government are pressurized because it considered problems that intuitively needs to solve. Thus, because back then it considered its less utility by the government, since this person speak about it, government needs to solve it. Why this analysis is important? Because research makes people or government directly consider what is the problem in the corner of their eyes that has not been solved. The comparatively in our side, first, it is a sign that the government still open the chance of solving minority issues, but in their side, the research would lessen government accountability if they are shutting the fund, because the government cannot uphold their accountability just because they are not upholding the minority rights. Last argument, why it will giving discriminatory budget allocations. Understand that it will be hinders the government to see what the problem inside of our status quo. Thus, the budget allocation that the government gives already considered the allocation based on the majority cases or the majority importance, because government inherently doesn't know what is the very important thing to giving the allocations of money. For example, like building mosque instead of building church in Indonesia. Why this is important? Because in order for you to allocating budget, it should be on the basis of research, policy making, and etc. Thus, in their side, they cannot prove to us why those particular issues can be solved. Thank you.
Opposition side of the house should be more pragmatic, listening. Yes, in principle, like government has the responsibility to open more doors for academicians to develop the research, but you have to be pragmatic. You have to be realistic, listening. Government also have responsible and has the peer pressure to act fast for the betterment of their country, they are being peer pressured to create a much more tangible outcome. They are being scrutinized by the society that there's a lot of funding allocations, but never really tangible outcomes. They never really create a tangible policy. In our house, this is exactly our point. What we want to prove to you that by this self-determining utility factor, all policy making will be much more objective, will be much more accurate, ladies and gentlemen. Haykal bring idea that in our house there's a likelihood that that there will be the research that most likely will be beneficial but bit limited. He brought up like the case of the research of cure cancer. Exactly because cure cancer, exactly because society demands cure cancer, exactly because those research are proven needed. Exactly why those research pass in the parliament, exactly why those research pass to be implemented. This is clearly our point. This is clearly to show to you that utilitarian purpose should be prioritized by the government, by the university, because university itself also has the peer pressure to create better outcome, to create a better academicians graduating from that university. That's why you have PKM. Because they incentivize you to create a better outcome on what is really needed by the country. Moving on to my class. First, which sites of research will have more tangible outcome? Opposition side house are being dismissive to our contextualization, ladies and gentlemen. They never engage to us when we already explained to you that the procedure of this self-determined utility factor comes from accurate data, comes from accurate data, comes from accurate research on what is really needed by the society or by the country. For example, if a certain country needs development in agricultural sector, this research will cater to that. Our proposal will caters to what really country needs, ladies and gentlemen. Because the thing is that society is still inconsistent. Ladies and gentlemen, and that's why if you follow to our proposal, inconsistent will not exist, because we already maximize the potential of the utilitarian purpose. We already concede that limitation of research will still exist under our side house, but it is still okay, ladies and gentlemen, because we already say to you that limitation necessary in order to get tangible outcome, but this is not exclusive under our side house, because in their side house, those minority research will not be able to succeed, will not be able to compete at all at the end of the day, because they're going to be overshadowed by those research that is by those popular research. They will be overshadowed by research that is needed proven by the statistics, and that's why even minority research will not be able to thrive in their side of the house. Our side is much more better, because in our side of the house we don't have to allocate funding. We don't have to waste money, ladies and gentlemen, because the problem in the status quo, the research funding is a waste of money, where the outcome tends to be inapplicable, while on the other hand, government already fund those research, but never really have any tangible outcome. outcome, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why it's much more it's problematic much more under Cyber House. It's much better in Cyber House because at least we don't have to spend money in which money is essential for the betterment of the state, ladies and gentlemen. Our worst case scenario is that we agree that we agree that government can bias and society is not going to accept, but this is still okay, this man, because even if society is not going to accept with our decision, they're going to disagree for a short period of time, this man, because society have the tendency to be inconsistent. They may not be content right now, but most likely they will be content because they still have to go on with their lives, man. They will have the tendency to agree because we have given you the evidence that this will be beneficial for you, listener. This is beneficial for your betterment. This has tangible outcomes, man. And that's why in our House, society will still have the tendency to accept our decision, even if government tends to bias. This is not the case, ladies and gentlemen, because government has the tendency to maintain the reputation, man. They have the tendency to ensure that they won't be scrutinized by the society. They have the tendency to ensure that they won't be impeached by the society, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why the government is much more better under our side of the house. What opposition is being dismissive that even if this minority research is being limited, but they still have backup plans, ladies and gentlemen. They still have NGOs, they still have other external factors that will still help them, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why those research that will not be funded will still be able to develop at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And also if you follow our proposal, minority research will still have the incentive to develop the research, man. They will still have the incentive to maximize the potential to have they will still have the incentive to maximize the potential in order for them to be accepted by this self-determining factor utility, ladies and gentlemen. Government Cyber House is much more pragmatic, is much more paying attention to what society needs right now, ladies and gentlemen. Unlike the opposition Cyber House, where there's inconsistent and unclear characterization of what is really needed and what is really and what the essence of research should be, ladies and gentlemen, in which those research should have more tangible outcomes because we already invest so much on that research, gentlemen, and that's why you should follow our proposal. Vote for the government.
We told you that the government should not only be pragmatic, but also government should also responsible upon the society that chose them, for example, or society that are vulnerable inside of status quo that they should protect inside of our status quo. But even if opposition government said that the government should be pragmatic, we told you that Haykal already told you that in status quo, what they want exactly that the better allocation of budget towards the research that is useful towards our nation still exists annually, ladies and gentlemen. Because if government think that that's something necessary in, for example, increasing our economy, increasing our technology, for sure government will provide the budget for that sector, ladies and gentlemen, because that's the thing that will have them better outcome and better development for our general society, ladies and gentlemen. But their burden of proof is to explain to us why in status quo it is not enough, ladies and gentlemen, or in status quo it is fuck up, ladies and gentlemen. So we told you that in status quo, if the motions happen, you should trade off vulnerable people and marginalized people like LGBT, like the women that Haykal already told you, which is not justified
justifiable to sacrifice in the end of the day. They are the one who should be protected in the end of the day. But comparatively, what they are protecting in status quo are people who are privileged, people who are already accepted by society sphere, without having scientists explaining that they are okay, that LGBT is not a disease, and that they are already accepted by society, or people who do not need protection, or the capitalists, for example, instead of status quo, who engage in economy and engage into the circulation of economy development that we have instead of our status quo. And that's not a justifiable thing that government should do. So two clashes in today's debate, right? First on the how better allocation of budget, and second on the people that they are trading off, and the worst scenario they cannot be able to protect them, or if they can be able to protect them. So first on the better allocation of budgeting. Their main idea in this point, saying that government have unnecessary spending, government following the popular global scale of development, for example, and the efficiency of budgeting. We told you that government gives too much jargon like efficiency, stability, without necessarily explaining how to get to that, ladies and gentlemen. We told you that the clarification is that what do they mean by unnecessary spending, right? Because Neny already told you that government is so rational in having the better outcomes towards society general prosperity, for example. But let's negate this point, right? We told you that government do not do unnecessary spending, right? In status quo, there is a different budgeting allocation to different sectors we have instead of status quo. Example, education have 20% of budgeting, because based on research on education, it's basic things to make your state be productive and have innovation. That is why they have more allocation of budget. So in status quo, better allocation of budgeting